history fans, and welcome back to Historian Reacts. Today we're doing episode 2 of Plebs because the subject is a lot more, I should say, PG, so we've got more to talk about. So it's called The Gladiator and we're still in Rome in 27 BCE, so let's give it a watch.
This is the skankiest gym in town. I mean, why did we join this place? And this is so rank. I mean...
Okay, so we've started in a room full of hot and sweaty men, and Marcus calls it a gym, which obviously doesn't mean the same as what we mean when we say gym. In ancient Rome, people did go to the gymnasium to exercise, to do athletics or wrestle, but it gradually became more and more of a social gathering instead, which is why we're seeing him there with his friends. The gym can also be found in bathhouses. They would have had the baths and then a courtyard outside where you would have exercised instead. And I think what we're seeing is the bath version of the gym. So I think they're in a bathhouse.
I think I'll hit the plunge pool before someone takes a on my lap.
Yeah, okay, so bathhouses did have a lot of different temperature rooms, and judging by this scene, I think they're in what would have been the caldarium, which was the hot and humid room with a bath as well, that you might have followed with a cold bath in the frigidarium or a warm bath in the tepidarium. But bathing and the gym was famously a social activity, so I think he's right in saying it's not Marcus's vibe. Okay, so then we meet the gladiator in the same bathhouse. He approaches Marcus completely naked, asking to borrow a towel, and obviously Marcus is all awkward and it's just like, okay, sure. And then in the next scene, the same gladiator appears and he is taking Cynthia out on a date. Cynthia's the neighbour that Marcus likes, but he gets chatting to Grumio, who likes gladiators and knows a lot about it, and he collects the stickers. So the gladiator gives them tickets to his fight the next day.
Mark of a gladiator.
You're a gladiator?
Oh, God.
Cool, what type?
Middleweight net man, East End division, just transferred from Syracuse last season.
God, you know your stuff, didn't you?
I collect the stickers.
Well,
okay, so I think we're about to see the fight, and Cassius comes out with a trident and a net, which suggests that he is a retiarius, which in Latin means net man. So he fights with the equipment that a fisherman would have, and that's one of the 4 most common or most known gladiator fighting styles of the time. The net man came from the early Augustan era. So the other common styles are Samnites, who were based on, I believe they were initially enemies of Rome that they then defeated. They fight like the Samnite warriors. It came about in the early Republic period of Rome, and they are very heavily armed fighters. Next we have Triacs or Thraces, and they fought in pairs. They're also heavily armed, but they have a small rectangular shield and a sickle. You're not going to stay, are you? Yeah, they have a small rectangular shield and a sickle. And lastly we have the Myrmidon, who are the fishmen rather than the netman that Cassius is. Their difference, however, apart from being heavily armoured, is they have a huge helmet and they fight with a Greek style sword. Let's carry on.
We who are about to die salute you.
Okay, so he's just done like a version of the oath. He said, what did he say? We who are about to die salute you before he fought, which is similar to the real one that gladiators would have said. Apparently they said something along the lines of, I've had to look this up, I will endure to be burned, to be bound, to be beaten, and to be killed by the sword. Carrying on.
Oh, I love that bit. Here we go.
Oh, also, interestingly, apparently, the emperors paid for all the gladiator games to try and keep the poor people entertained and distracted to stop them rebelling against all the poverty.
Oh, you bossed it out there, man. It was magic.
No, it's too easy. They keep putting me up against these Gallic mugs.
Gallic mugs.
Gallic mugs.
So this mate of yours who runs the bouts?
Darius.
I don't want to know his name.
Too late, it's Darius.
Okay, could he, in theory, put Cassius against someone properly dangerous?
So we then see Marcus bribing the landlord to pay some bloke to fix the next game to get rid of Cassius the Gladiator, which doesn't surprise me and most likely did happen, as in any world there's space for bribery, and of course there is in the Roman world as well. So yeah, it just wouldn't surprise me if that actually happened, especially if it's gladiator games that the Emperor has put on. Like, come on.
Completely different.
Because he doesn't stamp on them?
No, because he doesn't actually kill anyone.
Sorry, what?
It's theatre.
Well, it's in a theatre.
It's not the kind of acting that I want to do or anything, but fight scenes that realistic are a very skillful theatrical form.
Do you want to tell her, or...?
We then see Cynthia misunderstanding the whole situation because she thought that Cassius was acting the whole time and not actually just killing people, and she then objects, which would have happened at the time. Not everyone would have enjoyed seeing people just killed, but I feel like it was a minority. I feel like that was their entertainment a lot of the time, because the games aren't banned or have no interventions before 325 CE, when Emperor Constantine bans the games, saying they have no place in a time of peace and civility. They have no place in a time of civil and domestic peace, is the exact quote. Cynthia has now dumped the gladiator and he is now a mess, and Marcus panics and tries to call off the bribe, but it's too late, it's already been fixed. Cassius is going to be facing the beast of Germania now rather than just another Gaul. Now, for context, the Gauls were the Celtic tribes spread across Europe, mostly in France, and they were involved in a few wars with Rome that a lot of the time ended up with a lot of human sacrifices of the Gauls in Rome, and Germania was always just lumped in the same category by Roman historians. They just said anyone in the rest of Northern Europe was a barbarian, and Tacitus tells us that they're very indigenous and they have like no other people mixed in with them. He doesn't call them inbred, but he just says like there's none of us there, no one else enters their tribe, which to me would suggest that they're obviously good at keeping out invaders, and that makes sense as to why then that's more of a threat to the gladiator, because the Romans could easily fight the Gauls but they couldn't the Germanic people. The beast of Germania is on the way.
Back in the game, my son.
We then see Cassius just give up and not even bother to fight, but Grumio starts this chant that gets him going, and you think he's got a bit of luck, but then the idiot here decides to get up and shout, and he distracts him, and Cassius gets his head chopped off, and that's it. And the episode ends with Grumio saying,
He did actually have quite a good innings for a gladiator.
It's bound to happen sooner or later.
There we go.
which is quite true, because gladiators tended to only live till the early mid-20s and they only survived roughly 10 fights before meeting their end anyway. So I feel like Cassius had a good go. And I think 10 was like the aim for gladiator trainers, because they didn't want to have to keep spending money on these new trainers, especially if they were popular. They didn't want like to lose a crowd favourite for them to die, because then the crowd wouldn't come back and watch if their favourite wasn't fighting. So they did try to keep them alive a little bit, and that's where we have the myth of that in all the films. Let's go on to that though. So like I was saying, training for gladiators was expensive, so when a gladiator overpowered their opponent, they wouldn't straight away kill them. They'd sometimes turn to the crowd and they'd ask for their reaction, and that's where we get the kill him, don't kill him in all modern films. However, there has been research into what that meant, and the films are wrong. The historical fact behind it is true. In Latin it's called pollici verso, and that's when the gladiator used the crowd's response to determine the fate of his fellow gladiator. Obviously we don't know what it meant, our records don't show that, but it's likely that meant kill him and that meant spare him, whereas in the films it goes spare him, kill him. We think it's kill him, spare him, or spare him. I think maybe that. Spare him. Like I said, there's no evidence of what exactly gesture it was, but there is evidence of the crowds interacting in Juvenal's Against the City of Rome, which was written between 110 and 127 AD or CE, depending on what you like to say. And it says, now they give shows of their own, thumbs up, thumbs down, and the killers spare or slay, and then go back to their concessions for private privies. Privies? Yeah, there we go. That's that. Your basic introduction to Gladiators through Plebs. Now, of course, Plebs is a non-PC show, but I like it. But obviously it's not one I'm going to show on YouTube. So if you're of the age, watch it. It's good and it's funny. And it is loosely based on truth. And I think it gives... Sorry, I just leant on my hands. Ow. I think it gives a good, funny, comical, but sort of maybe slightly tiny bit accurate insight into the lives of the average person in ancient Rome. I mean, Grumio the slave wouldn't have just been chilling with his masters, but, you know, it's just a bit of fun. I would recommend. Thank you very much if you've watched all the way through. I hope you've enjoyed. Let me know in the comments if there's any other TV shows you think I should react to or you think I should watch. I was thinking of Becoming Elizabeth, and that's about Elizabeth first, but let me know. If this video gets, what should we say, 50 likes, we'll do another one. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and I'll see you very soon. Bye!